Welcome to Keith's Broken Boats and other stuff. Okay, this is all the shield and gimbal housing. Goes in the back of my boat, which I'm going to try and fit. What I think I'm going to do is you have a seal that runs around here which seals this housing against the back of the transom of the boat. Now there is a thing, do you glue, don't you glue, do you use sealant or not? I've got a brand new seal here which offers quite a lot of compression sealing. If you look, you see how proud it is. That squeezes against the transom, that seals it all. So what I think I'm going to do is get some bellows adhesive, put it around in here, put it onto one side of this O-ring and glue the O-ring into the housing. Then that'll hold it in the housing while I put it on the boat. Okay, let's make a start. Okay, so I'm going to get some bellows adhesive. I'm going to smear it all around here. I'm going to take out these retaining bolts first. In previous videos, you can see me redoing all of this if you're interested. Or just carry on. Right then. Now I've got some bellows adhesive. And I'm going to be smearing that in there. And this is to glue my transom seal into this recess while I put it in. Bellows adhesive is a little bit like an impact adhesive. I think you put it on both surfaces, wait for it to dry a bit, and then push it together. So I'm going to put a layer all around in here. And while that dries, I'm going to put a layer on the outside of the seal. Okay, now we're all glued up. There is a join in this seal, just there. See it? I'm going to put that right at the top. Stick that in there. Work it round. Bellows adhesive, grabbing both sides of that seal, pushing it down deep into that groove. This is the only sealant I'll be using. I'm not going to put any silicone or anything on it. I'm just going to rely on that bellows adhesive on that side of it, holding it in place in there, and then this side of it just squeezes up against the transom. Make sure it's all pushed down nice and firm, down into its groove. Get into the groove. There's a piece on the outside there, wipe that off. Right, happy with that. And off with this up. Now, ideally, I would have had somebody in the boat. I'm just going to give that face a wipe. There. Ideally, I've had somebody in the boat just to receive it and help pull it into place, but I'm on my own at the moment, so let's just see how it goes. can only go wrong. Which is the story of my life. Right, that's that shift cable in. That in. That goes in there. That sits on there. Woohoo! Bits back on the boat. Okay, that's what it looks like from the inside. And now, this piece here has to go through there. That shift cable. No, those two out holes. So this shift cable comes through this hole here. Try not to kink that. I should probably cut that cable tight. Easier. And then this piece here, I think, really ought to come through there. Like so. Okay, I've got to shove it up more on the back. This is where I could have done with a hand, but never mind. That comes down through there, or should, no, I think they should come through there. Let me get some wire cutters. Oh, look, camera fell over. Okay, we're still going, are we? Oh yes. That's probably right then. I'm going to cut these cables here because these are to the trim sensors, and I think I'm actually going to try and thread those through that hole there. Makes sense. If I pull that off, these cables are for the trim sensors, which say how high or low the leg is, the angle of the leg. I expect all you can see in this picture is my leg. Let's just shove all those cables through there. Do is to get a bolt in, and it's not close enough. Wonder, is it close enough at the bottom? I don't know if that started or not. Let's get a well, that one started. Let's see if I can get a nut on there just to help pull it up. Please start. Oh, we have progress. Okay then, let's see if I can get a nut on here now. Plenty of copper slip on the bolts. Let's see what else we can get in. Is that coming? I think that's got to start. Let's see if we get this. That's got to start. Here goes through there, and I actually think that's got to start. Now I would say that this doesn't really want to be a massive torque, because you're going into aluminium. So I'm thinking that bit of a nip is probably more than enough. Okay, now I've got to try and find, I'm going to try and find a couple of washers for those. Okay, I've got the shield put in now with like all the top 4 bolts and studs, and I bought some new bottom bolts. Okay, if you look at these, I'll show you one there. Look, you've got this establishment here which goes on the outside, how that's made, and obviously this piece here comes through into the boat on these bottom 2 holes down there. Now this is made out of aluminium, and I'll explain why I think they're made out of aluminium. And to me it makes sense. To someone else they might go, that's a load of rubbish. But just bear in mind, I'm not an expert, and this is not a how-to, it's just what I'm doing. But I'll explain why I think these are made out of aluminium, and we'll fit them, and then that's the shield bolted in. And then I've got to do a few more bits to it. Obviously it's easier to put stuff on the shield with it like in this situation than it is when the engine's in there, because the engine sits here and here. That's the engine mounting pieces there. So obviously all the bits like the exhaust, which is going on the bottom, the trim pipes which are going to come up out the bottom, and the steering ram which is going to go across there, all those bits need to really go on before I put the engine in. But once I've got those bits on, the engine will be going in. So right, so these bolts here go in through this square hole here and butt up like that, leaving that threaded portion hanging out. Now I'm going to say the reason why I think these are made out of aluminium. Okay, this shield here, this is aluminium. The water line is roughly here, sort of just above this. So this, all this part here is always submerged in water when it's in water. And these bolts here, if these were made, I don't know if some people might have broke these because they are only aluminium and just gone and got a normal coach bolt and banged in there. Not a good idea. Because these are made out of aluminium, this is made out of aluminium, they are the same material, which means there is no potential difference between the shield and the bolt, which means that these won't have galvic corrosion inside that hole, so they won't rot away the shield or rot away the bolt, the bolt, sorry. So that's what I think. Now I have got to seal this piece here somehow. I think I'm just going to use silicone because I haven't got anything else to put on there. So I'm going to put some silicone on the back of the bolt there. I'm going to pull it in and I'm going to tighten it up. And then there is
an anode which goes on the back of that, which is made out of zinc. Now zinc is a less noble material than aluminium, so what will happen is all materials are sort of negatively or positively charged, and when they're all in close proximity to each other, immersed in a means of transport, shall we say, the positive and negative charges all try and equal out. Now this is called galvic corrosion, because the positive and negative neutrons can't just go on their own from one material to the other so they all end up equal, which is called the same potential. What they have to do is they can't swim. They need a vessel. They need something to get them from, say, this piece of aluminium to this piece of stainless steel. And what that will do is they will take a little bit of the aluminium and they'll use it as a vessel to travel to the steel, and that will cause galvic corrosion, because every time they take a little bit away, that takes away from this material here and it corrodes. So what you have is a zinc which fits on here, which is the least noble metal of all the metals on the boat. So that'll be the one that will be taken away first, and that is sacrificial. That's why it's important to change your zincs, change your anodes. There's another one that bolts on under here over the top of the trim pipe plate here, distribution plate. But anyway, I'm going to put these on. Maybe that makes some sense. The dog thinks so, obviously. Come on, out the way, pup. Okay, now this is some black gasket maker. I'm going to give a dose in this hole first, because if I get water coming in here, that's straight into the back of the boat. And I'm going to go around where that bolt sits, and I'm going to also put a little bit on here. I can always wipe the excess off. I don't want water coming in my boat. It's probably not the best thing. There is probably a seal. I looked on the parts book and everything to see if there was. There is like things of a wash, but I can't seem to get a part number for it. So if I put that in there like that, push that up, it's all bulged out now around the outside of that, which is a look I don't like, so I'm going to get a bit of cloth and wipe that off. Then I'll jump in and I'll put the nut on the other side of it and just nip it up. Silly really being worried about that bit there, because nobody's going to see it, but I'll know it's there. And there it is, protruding into the boat. Got a stainless steel washer which goes over the top of that. You just need to get a bit of cloth. I've actually now found some rubber seals to go on the backs of these bolts, so I have put those on. I'm just going to pull that through. Put my nut on. I've had to run a tap down the middle of these nuts because they were a little bit corroded, but they're going on well now. So extension, bear in mind these are aluminium bolts, so it's not going to be a massive torque, it's only going to be a nip. I don't want to break them. That'll do. That'll do. I'm happy with that. So I'm now going to fit the next one. So rubber seal on the outside coming in. You may see it pop in. If I put that down there, nice big washer. Want that bit of gunk off there. The nut. Half-inch UNC nut. Had to use the old ones because I haven't got any others. They'll be okay. They'll do the job. Recycle. Save the planet. And again, just a nip. Don't want to break them. They're only aluminium. I think the book says about 25 pounds-feet torque on that. That's that. Now, this piece here is the zinc, the sacrificial anode that screws onto the end of that bolt. And they do screw on. Okay, now there is also a plastic washer that goes inside that anode that screws onto there. And what that does is that stops the anode growing onto that face there, I think. See there, screws on. There's a couple of flats on it. I'm gonna have to get a pair of grips on it, I think. And that just winds on the end of that bolt, like so, on that threaded portion, like that. And that's the anode on. Got a little pair of grips, just to sort of give that a nip, really. Open up a little bit more. And there it is. There it is. That bit there on the outside of the bolt is the zinc. That'll corrode, not the bolt. Happy days. This is one of the old bolts that came out of there. And if you look carefully there, you can see how it's all been eaten away. And that is an example of galvic corrosion.